Welcome back to Boss Uncaged podcast. So today's episode, if you don't have pen and paper, I would advise you to go ahead. I'm going to blabber for like another 15 to 30 seconds to give you enough time to get some pen and paper because you're going to need it because we're going to drop tons and tons of golden nuggets today. So today we have Mike, and whoever I'm interviewing, I like to give a nickname. So the nickname to this boss is going to be the Amazon Ecom boss. That should tell you what your notes are going to be about today, right? So the floor is yours, Mike. Why don't you talk to our audience, tell them a little bit about yourself, and what would you like to talk about today?
Hey, Chanel, thanks for having me. Thanks for that great intro as well. I appreciate being the Amazon ecom boss. That's a cool nickname. Cool. So, about me, I'm the CEO of AMZ Advisors. We are an e-commerce specific digital marketing agency. We help brands scale from about 1 to 10 million or more a year on the Amazon platform. And we're one of the oldest doing this. We've been around for 8 years, got a ton of experience working with some of the largest brands in the world, multinationals and everything. So lots of different experience I've had managing these brands on the Amazon platform.
So, with that, right? Like I like to do my due diligence, and I think this episode I really want to start off with time traveling. I want to go back to, and again, I'm estimating the dates right now, right? I want to go back to July, roughly 21st, 2016, and the quote that you had posted was, "A man is made by his belief, as he believes, so he is." And you were walking out the door of a company you was working for. You had your book bag on. You had the largest damn Kool-Aid smile ever. Let's start there. What happened?
Man, you really did do your due diligence on that. So going way back, that was my last day working in an office ever. I'm in an office now, working for someone else in an office. I should be more specific. I kind of made the decision there. I was like, you know what, I'm going to go do my own thing. The company I was working for at the time, things, I'm glad to talk about that as well. Things weren't great. We were doing a good job. I was doing an awesome job, but, I was like, I got to do something for myself. I trust my own decision-making. I think I can make better decisions than the leadership here. And that's kind of how the journey started. And ever since then, AMZ Advisors has continued to grow. I've started a few other businesses. But that was, it was something I'd been thinking about for a while. It was not something I was born as an entrepreneur. I never had the desire of having a business from my start, but it was more that as I gained more experience in the work world, I started seeing things a lot differently on, how I should kind of live my life than let other people dictate how I live.
Yeah. And so, the reason why I wanted to start with that is it's kind of like, obviously with entrepreneurs, everyone has that moment. Everyone has like that moment, whether if they're 15 selling something or they're 55 years old and they say the hell with corporate America or hell with whatever I was working for, and I'm going to start my own thing. So I want to kind of like keep time traveling back, right? Obviously you talked about like business to a certain extent. You had other businesses, but I want you to talk about like your university days. Because you have like a mixed bag of different background degrees. You have a real estate kind of finance, you have economics, you have a couple of different things in this. I want to kind of talk about how do those things kind of stage to where you are right now.
Of course. And I think one of the important things to talk about there is, like I said, I never expected myself to be an entrepreneur. I never had the idea of like, I'm going to have a business no matter what. Growing up, I always, and this is like a kind of a weird reference, but I always played team sports. I was never an individualist. I never thought like, I'm going to accomplish this on my own. It's, the team is going to accomplish this. And I thought that really applied a lot more to the corporate world than it does to the entrepreneurial world. Now I obviously see like the correlations, but at the time I didn't. So talking about that, I played originally lacrosse in college. I went to Stony Brook University. We were one of the top 20 programs in the country at that point. I was going crazy managing my schedule. That was one thing. That's just part of being on a team. But I started off studying business administration. And I was kind of like, I have no idea what I want to do. I think I want to do something in business. Let's start here. This was like 2008. So the whole world was burning down and like, I had no idea what was going on. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not really learning anything in business administration. I started getting interested in like how systems work and how things work. And from there, I had the opportunity to transfer to another university, St. Joseph's in Philadelphia. And from there, I kept playing lacrosse, but I shifted what I was studying from business administration to political science, international relations, and economics, because those are all systems studies. Like how does one thing relate with another? How does one change here affect something else there? And then I think that's something I've always been interested in seeing how things are related, how I can tie things together, and how I can leverage, I guess, different tools to help achieve the outcomes I'm looking for. And that's really where like the education started. And that's where I started learning more about, how to, I hate the word power dynamics, but, that's part of it. It's like, how do things relate to each other? How do certain people leverage more power over others to get what they want? And I think that's the first step in the educational process right there.
Yeah, so let's spin off of that. I mean, you're talking about the dynamics of like the education based upon like being a boss, and obviously, I think part of that is obviously you're making money, but you're also giving back to the community. And so I want to talk about like your philanthropic side. I mean, obviously, you're a youth lacrosse coach. You've also did some Special Olympics in Connecticut volunteering. So I want to talk about like how does that play into who you are right now as a leader of your company?
I think for me, they're obviously different experiences. I mean, I think from coaching standpoint, it was more of how can I share my knowledge to help other people get to the same place I was. I mean, I had an awesome experience playing at a top university, Division 1, playing with some of the best players in the country at that time. Like one of my good friends, he was player of the year his senior year. He was literally one of the best players in all of Division 1.
Mm,
And I was like, how can I take this experience and help other people? And I think that's probably the one way that I would say has impacted me more on the way that I like try to run my businesses or try to grow my businesses, is like, how do I create more opportunity for others?
mm,
And I think that is one example of it. Special Olympics, that was also a fun experience. That was not as motivated by trying to give back to other people. I personally had some family that were impacted by some, so say, disabilities, and that was more of just like trying to show my support for my family and my family members. So I don't think I got the same out of volunteering for Special Olympics as I did out of coaching, because coaching I see a lot more value in
mm.
distilling what we know. And it's the same thing we're doing here on a podcast, is distilling what we know for other people to be able to use and have within their lives to make better decisions and improve themselves as a person.
Hmm, hmm. So I mean, as you can tell with this podcast, I'm layering up like the different aspects of who you are, right? So there's another part of you is that's really good for an entrepreneur is that you're a risk taker, and I can step out there and say you're a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, just a little bit. It takes one to know one. So I want to kind of talk about that for a minute, right? Kind of like you've traveled the world to a certain extent, like
Yeah.
you're not even in America right now. So I want to talk about how has that influenced where your business is today, considering that what you do is on a global scale versus a national scale.
I think it's obviously had an impact. And I think the way that we all approach risk is different. I mean, the way that I learned risk was through real life examples of actually working. I didn't mention it, but when I had that job that day before I walked out for the last time, I was working at Sears in real estate development.
Mm,
And Sears was failing at the time. It was like 2014, 2015. One of the first things I did when I came on was we spun off a $2 billion REIT to try to give the business more cash to keep going. But a lot of my job after that involved closing Sears stores, redeveloping Sears stores, seeing people being fired or let go. And that, it kind of sucked. And I mean, to be honest, put it that way, but
mm,
it made me start looking at risk in a different way, in that it doesn't matter how big the company is. It doesn't matter, how long they've been around. There's always a risk of you losing your job because of someone else's decision or someone else's mistake. And I think that impacted the way that I approach risk a lot, is that, do I trust myself to make better decisions than other people? Yes. For myself, I always trust myself to make better decisions. And that's kind of where I started approaching risk differently.
mm,
So as we're talking about traveling, I put everything in perspective. I'm also a dual citizen of Portugal. So I have more experience in other cultures, or I'm more
mm,
used to it. It wasn't that risky to me. It was more of like an experience. Like, what can I learn from this versus like, what am I risking by doing this? It was the same idea when I moved to Mexico. What are the opportunities for me here versus what's the risk that I have? I mean, the opportunities were that, I met my girlfriend, who's now my wife. I can start hiring a team and growing a business down here. I
mm.
might meet other entrepreneurs or other people down here that can open up other doors for me that I may not have access to in the US. So I think that's when it comes to like the risk side of it, it's always weighing against what's the opportunity cost versus the risk. It goes back to economics. So
Yeah.
if I don't take this chance, like, what am I going to lose out from? And
Mm,
most of the time, the worst case scenario, for example, if you're going to start a business, what's the worst case scenario if you fail? You go back and get a job. You start something else. Like the risk is very rarely catastrophic when you're trying something. And I mean, that's part of it, is like, how can you minimize the risk of taking it, making a change? The risk of me moving to Mexico and things not working out is I move back to the US. It's not the end of the world. And like I said, we tend to make things larger than they really are, where the risks are really not ever that catastrophic.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, like I'm loving this conversation, because again, it's kind of like, we're peeling back layers of who you are, and obviously we're going to get to the climax of what you do and how you do it. But I really want to talk about like your life experience, right? I mean, obviously you traveled Europe, you traveled Central America. I think it was for 10 months. You brought up Portugal, right? So you have dual citizenship there, but also you went scuba diving in Portugal. You were rock climbing in some other, I think it was like Western or South California or something along those lines. So if you've done a lot of different things, and even you always challenge yourself as well too. Kind of like I can go back and think about something that you have posted, and you were like, okay, I'm about to hit this 195 on your power snatch. And you were like, okay, next up is 200. So like every time you get to another level, you're trying to achieve something else. So I want you to talk about like, where does that come from? Is it one of your parents that are essentially overachievers that kind of infused that into you? Or is it just something you just grew into over the years?
I think it's something I just grew into. Like my parents, I mean, they're pretty average. My mom's a nurse. My dad worked at a factory. Like it was nothing crazy. I think really it came from the competitive side of me. And it's not a good thing, but I'm constantly comparing myself to others, or like seeing what I could be doing differently or how I could be at a different level. And like, that's personally something I struggle with, is like, I need to get better at not comparing myself to other people. But at the same time, the benefit has been that it pushes me forward to try new things or to challenge myself in new ways. So it comes from, lacrosse, it comes from years of team activity, of trying to be the best, of trying to win. I mean, the same thing happens now in business, is like, how can we differentiate ourselves, or how can we be the best? And I think that naturally requires comparing yourself to other people or other businesses or whatever it is. And for me, that's probably one of the most motivating factors in going out and trying and testing new things. So yeah, I mean, it's not a great thing. I honestly am not that proud of that I do that, but it's something that I do see value in. And I think it's something that's helped me to change perspective on what I'm doing, or at least look at where I'm trying to get and what are the steps that I need to get there. I think I heard a great video the other day talking about the problem of motivation, is that we have a lot of motivation in the beginning of achieving a goal and a lot of motivation right before we're about to achieve it. But that middle part is where we're lacking. So the idea of breaking it down into smaller and smaller goals and smaller steps to keep those motivation gaps smaller and smaller and keep everything more consistent is kind of the way I get there. So you bring up the example of, working out or training. What's one small goal is get to this point, get to this weight, or practice this exercise and master this, or master this movement, or master this aspect of it, or whatever it may be. And then all those small steps over time will lead you to actually hitting the bigger goal that you're trying to get to. I think that's another key aspect of trying to improve and trying to push yourself like that.
I think that's definitely a fascinating answer. And it kind of leads me to a position that you held as a contributing writer for business.com. So I want you to kind of think about like you're writing an article, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know you don't necessarily write articles today, but I want you to kind of go back in state of mind, and I want you to talk about yourself in a reference to identifying yourself just by using 3 to 5 words to open up this article. How would you identify? What words would you choose?
Wow. That's a really good question. I've never even thought about that. To identify myself now as who I am.
Yeah.
Look, I would say that, and this is even weird saying this about myself, I would say that I'm a leader in the e-commerce space, and that I'm great at getting teams to work together and lead teams towards goals. I guess that's the way I would put it. I think everything I've done in any aspect, whether it's being a leader of a business, being a coach, being as a member of a team, starting with some of the new startups that I have going with some other partners, it's all about getting people working together and getting things moving in the right way. And I think in a way, that's the most important thing that I would try to convey in any article at this point. Anything I would be writing is that there's a lot of pieces behind the scenes or a lot of people that got to work together to help you achieve the goal. I might be able to write a topic on whatever, but there's a lot that goes into just writing that topic. It's, doing the research, the editing, everybody else that's contributing to it. It could be the creatives and everything. But I think that's the main thing that I would try to get across is that I am, I'm not a miracle worker. I don't do any of this on my own. I do it because I have a great team behind me, and getting a team working together is the key to be able to achieve whatever you want in business.
So like, let's keep building out this article. So like the headline or the sub headline in this article is going to read that, AMZ Advertisers has over 2 billion monthly visitors. Like, I want you to kind of talk about like again, 2 billion is one of those astronomical numbers, considering that in the global population, we're vastly approaching 8 billion, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to talk about like first of all, I mean, did you have to change your underwear when you looked at the stats that morning or that day or that week when you saw that you had hit that 2 billion?
Well, we personally have never hit that. I think that might specifically be a number about Amazon, but I mean, it is pretty impressive. Like another good example of something that we achieved recently was it's just a certification, but we got Amazon Advanced Partner status, which means that we're in the top 5% of all advertisers on the Amazon platform, which is phenomenal. Like for us to be able to realize that we put in that much work to be able to get to that point where, our ad spend for our clients is up 146% year over year. Like I said, we're one of the top agencies. There's not even that many that have this certification. And it's like, that's impressive, starting from where we started, where it was just myself and maybe one other person managing ads, to having a few individuals managing ads for their client, to being able to build a team over the past 2 years to actually scale up the advertising. We've seen a lot of the steps along the way, and that's the cool thing. And then again, it gets to the team part at the end. It's like, we made the biggest push because we built the team out. So that is another thing I would say is like, it's awesome getting there, but it requires the team to give you the support to be able to achieve it.
So, I mean, the thing I keep hearing over and over again from you is team, 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 team. So sure. I would think, right? And again, I'm going to let you answer this question without me even assuming anything. If you had an opportunity to go back to your younger self for a 10-minute window to tell your younger self things to do a little bit differently to help you achieve where you are, to happen a lot faster, when would you go back to, and what would you say to your younger self?
I would probably go back to before I even started this business. I think one of the things that I've come to realize a lot over the last year, we've worked with a really good business coach, is that, the way he puts it to me is that like, I'm a high achiever. I'm able to switch between tasks. I'm able to get a lot of things done. And because of that, it's harder for me to give up a lot of control. If there's something that can be done quickly, I can either, send it to someone that might take a day to get it done, or I can get it done now in 10 minutes. And learning to give up the control a little bit more probably would have helped us grow a little bit faster, or move things along faster. But even if I, go back to when I was working at Deloitte or Sears, if I had leveraged more of my team instead of trying to own things myself, I probably could have made more progress faster. I think it's like, I'm big on team, but it's like the area I need to improve in the most as well is trusting my team and getting, my team the resources they need or the tools they need to be as successful as possible to keep things moving. A really good example of this is we recently restructured our entire client deliverable process from, day 0 to day 90. And we had been talking about it for, 2 months before we did it. And I was going through the steps with everyone, trying to make sure everyone was there. And then one of my partners stepped in and he's like, look, get your hands off of this, let them figure it out. And it'll work. And that's pretty much what I did. And within, 3-4 weeks, everything was changed, everything was up and running, and everything was going. So it's a big part of trust. It's a big part of letting people do what they want or doing what you need them to do. But it's also about empowering them and trusting them to get the results that you need. And I think that is probably the one thing I would go back and tell myself is get better at that, because that's going to make the biggest difference in the long term.
So let's just talk about duration of time. We always hear about this level of success, and it's always perceived to be an overnight success. But in reality, how long have you been on this journey to currently where you are right now?
So we've been running, myself, my partners have been running AMZ Advisors for 8 years. So we've achieved varying levels of success. I mean, everyone has their own definition of what that is. Obviously, the first level was being able to support ourselves, not having to risk going back to a job. And we achieved that in something like 7 months, which was awesome. Pretty much replaced our previous income, which was phenomenal. And ever since then, we've just been growing. I mean, we got to our first $1 million year, I think 2019, which would have been 3 years in, 4 years in. And ever since then, we've just, continued to grow and continue to multiply from there. So when it comes to the timeline of success, it really depends on what you measure as success. I know this business was not going to be $100 million business or, $1 billion business. It's an agency. I mean, it's a service. Like everyone at a basic level can do this. Now, I can build a team that does this better than other people, and it's going to get to a certain point, but it still has, an upper limit on the size that it'll get to. Versus the skills I've learned getting to this point have put me in a place to be successful in a lot of other areas. And that's where a lot of the startups or the other projects that I've been working on, are starting to show potential for higher or a bigger, how should I put it? More success or a bigger size than where the company AMZ Advisors is right now, which is cool. I mean, the way I always put it is like, you learn one skill set really well. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you're going to find new opportunities that are around that skill set. And your job as an entrepreneur or your job as a business owner is to iterate, to try to improve the business model in whatever way it may be. It may be a whole different project that's related to this. It may be making one change to your deliverable to try to keep things moving forward and keep things growing. And I think we have a few iterations that we've made that have set us up for really great success with some of these other businesses. And that's the cool thing about it, is like the success I have today is not reflective of the success I'm going to have in the future. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I'm the one that's defining success. So I already feel successful. And the way that I'm looking at success in the future is defined by me. It's not defined by, making it happen in a year or making it happen overnight. Like, a lot of people view things. So that's probably one of the coolest things about it, is like we have the power to control what success looks like. And then we have everyone has their own ways of measuring and getting to that point of what they consider successful.
So I think you alluded to scalability. You alluded to opportunities, coming and then actually growing into those businesses. So some growth strategy as well. So I want you to kind of talk about go, advance, and magnify. I mean, those are the two things that we didn't identify as of yet. But again, you've been talking about them a little bit. So I want you to kind of tell the audience a little bit more about those two platforms and how they work and what you're doing right now with Amazon.
So, I mean, these are definitely iterations. They are not necessarily related. I'll start with Go Avance because that is the most similar to what we're doing on the Amazon side. Like I said, I live in Mexico. I've been in Mexico for 6 years. One of the things that we have a lot of our team members here in Mexico, and day to day, I'm constantly talking to them about stuff. And another interesting thing is we were one of the first companies in Mexico that was really doing e-commerce related stuff. I mean, there were a few, but there weren't that many. So we were kind of opening up new opportunities and, creating new jobs down here in the e-commerce space that didn't exist before. So during these conversations with people and, working with clients and seeing how things work in the US, it was more and more coming to our mind is like, why is it not similar here in Mexico? Or like, why is the customer experience here in Mexico so different? And we just kept playing around with ideas and iterations and just thinking about what could be done differently or how it could be improved or how it could be changed. And it eventually landed on its current model, which is essentially we are a partner or a distributor of every brand that wants to get into Mexico. And we help them deal with all the legal challenges, all the fiscal challenges, logistics, customer service, everything that is difficult for them to deal with as a business owner, we handle. And then we have the agency side, which can help them do the marketing, the growth, achieve scale in the marketplace. So it's really combining the best of both worlds in that. And this is a prime example of the iterations that I'm talking about, in that it is a direct iteration of what we were doing as an agency, but doing it here in Mexico with a slightly different format to deal with some of the challenges. When I say challenges, what do I mean? Foreign brands can't sell in Mexico, essentially, without either working with a distributor or starting your own business in Mexico. To start your own business in Mexico, you need a business partner in Mexico, which means you need to trust someone in Mexico. Once you have someone in Mexico you can trust, you then need to go get your tax ID, which can be anywhere from 4 to 6 months. So Mexico itself, you're looking at least 6 months to start a business. We're focused on some other markets where we're going to try to get brands into, Colombia and Brazil being the other two. Brazil can take up to 18 months. So as a business owner, like if I'm going to do this myself and I'm going to have to deal with this time span, that's a big investment of time. It's a big investment of money. You have to find the right partners versus we're able to handle it all for you. And we're already going to have the infrastructure and everything you need to get selling pretty much from day one. So that is an iteration of Go Avance. Magnified is different in that it is an outsourced sales company. So we work with a lot of creators, a lot of coaches that have really good programs. They might have really good presence on social media or really good personal brand that's bringing people to them, but they're not really good at selling. So this is a much bigger iteration than what we're doing on the AMZ side.
Yeah.
But the idea being that we're going to help you get more sales by you sending us the leads and us getting the deals over the line. For example, we've taken some coaches from 20% close rates to 53% close rates, or some coaches from doing $10,000 a month in sales to $120,000 a month in sales. So it's really finding. We came about that business through just identifying an opportunity, and actually, our partner, myself, my partners now, and our partner in that business actually met in Mexico. So he was living in Mexico. He's a British guy, and it was like the same thing. Like I talked about opportunity cost. Is that by being in a new place, we met this guy that wanted to start a business, who already was doing this for another business but didn't have equity in it. Already knew what needed to be done, and we just helped him achieve it. So it was really leveraging our skills, which was marketing, positioning, branding, and helping him apply within that business to get it going. And that's the coolest thing about it, is like we can build businesses by using what we learned about how to build AMZ advisors and just iterating around what we're doing, changing the service, changing the focus, changing the audience, whatever it may be. And then we know we're going to see success from it in the long term.
Definitely interesting. I mean, I could definitely tell like your leadership style is essentially kind of let people do what they need to do. And obviously you're not like hovering per se, which also kind of tells me I want to kind of talk about like your personal life, right? I mean, obviously I think you got engaged with your wife. I think it was like May of 2022, right? So I want you to kind of talk about like that duration of time, because I think that we haven't spoken about her yet, but I think that she's part of this equation as well that kind of keeps you probably sane on a regular basis. So in her voice, Mikey, right? I want you to kind of talk about like her and how does she help you kind of be as good as a leader as you currently are.
Yeah, I think she's helped me with a lot of, she's helped me challenge myself a lot to improve in different ways, starting from, when we were dating way back to where we are now. I mean, she was the one that really encouraged us to start hiring in Mexico. It was more of like, you're here, why not just hire the team? And, we had all these objections. We were like, people don't want to, and honestly, some of these objections are messed up now that we think about it. But when we come across companies like that, it's like Americans don't want to deal with Mexicans, whatever it may be. The accent's going to be too hard for Americans to understand. And like over time, we realized those were just lies that we were telling ourselves. Like we had a perspective of what a business person wanted, and we realized that was not true. And it took time to grow out of that, but it never would have even happened unless she started to push us to do that, or push me to do that. I obviously had to get my business partners on board because they had the same doubts that I had. And, once we did it, we realized, oh, this is awesome. And we've been able to, keep scaling up our teams here in Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Costa Rica, and, pretty much all over Latin America. So that was one way that she's really helped me as a person and, our business grow from the perspective she gives. I think she also she's always good to bounce off ideas off of, which is helpful. She's a doctor. Her degree is in orthodontics, but she also has a degree in psychology. So a lot of times she'll look at things from a different perspective, from more of like what someone's really trying to achieve at the psychological side. Then I'll look at things on the face value of stuff. So if I hear something, or if I see something, or someone tells me something, or I get this result, I look at the face value and she'll be like, well, what's really going on behind there? And then she helps me kind of peel back the layers there. Like, you're kind of doing here on the interview, to get to the root cause or the root problem, or identify what needs to really be fixed, or what this person's really trying to achieve. And for me, those are extremely useful. I think without some of those impacts that she's been able to make on my life, we probably would not have been as successful or gotten as far, or myself as a leader would not have improved as much as I have.
So like let's flip the coin, right? I mean, I think as much as she pushes on you, you probably pushing her as well too. And I remember it was a post when she graduated from post dental school, right? And she
Yeah.
had like the same exact Kool-Aid smile that you had in your previous picture when you were stepping out the door. So like was that 100% of her, or was that you kind of behind the scenes influencing her and leading her in that direction as well?
She knew what she wanted to do. It was more like I had to help her at some point just get through it because it was challenging. I think that's one of the good things that my background has. I mean, she's also an athlete, so she gets it, but she was on the individual side and the swimming side. I was on the team side on lacrosse. So, it's, we both understand it's like the term we use is embracing the suck. Like it's going to suck. You're going to have to go through it. You're going to have to push through it and you're going to get through it at some point. It's never going to be easy. It's always going to be a struggle. And I think now she's opening up her own clinic. She's been working for other doctors for the past few years, and she's starting to understand that more. Like sometimes she comes to me and she's like, I'm spending so much money on this. Like, this is hard. Like, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm scared I'm not going to find the customers or people aren't going to find me. And these are all risks that we all take at some point, or in some way, or, some form. And I think that the way that I can help her the most now, or the way that I do help her the most, is by giving her the support to make her realize that if this doesn't work out, or if it doesn't work out as fast as possible, or, you don't get exactly what you want in a certain time frame, it's not the end of the world. Like, I'm still here for you. If things don't work out, if you need money, like we'll solve this together as a team. And I think that's kind of the way that I help her more than anything. I don't try to push her too much. I think she has a lot of self-motivation to get things done herself. I just think that sometimes when she doesn't have the, how would I put it? When she's facing the uncertainty or doesn't know like what to do, or what could happen or what the sides would be, I can help her like talk through, like I said earlier, what's the worst case scenario that's going to happen? Well, it's not that bad once you actually think about it most of the time. So I think that's the way that I'm able to support her more than anything.
So I mean that kind of leads me to, I mean, obviously I was building up both hemispheres, right? So I want you to kind of talk about now. In the early days, you guys were traveling the world. You spent a lot of time together. You're married right now, and again, you're ambitious and she's ambitious. How the hell do both of you kind of manage your work-life balance, living in the same house at the same time, doing so many different things?
It's not easy. It's definitely a challenge from time to time. I think the main way that we try to handle it is just by clear communication. I think that's the biggest key, is that if you're not communicating clearly about what you need or what you want, or what's wrong, or whatever it may be, it's really hard for the other person to be able to recognize it. I mean, she's much more receptive of those things coming off of me than I am of her. And that's another weakness of mine. But it helps a lot when you have clear channels of communication, or clear ways to communicate. Like one good example of this is, for a certain time throughout the day, usually it's lunchtime, like we're just sitting there talking about what's going on. We don't have our phones, no other distractions. It's literally just like our time together to talk through things. And I think that's a really powerful tool. Communication is obviously the number one tool to kind of deal with that. And the other one is prioritization, scheduling time for each other. That's, our schedules are different. I get up early. I work until 4, 5, 6 in the afternoon. Because she's a doctor, most of her patients come in the afternoon. So she starts her day around 10 in the morning and might work until 8 o'clock at night. So it's very different from that, and it's different from my work schedule. And it's difficult to sometimes find the time to do things together. A lot of times it comes after she gets out of work. Most of the time it's on the weekends, but finding time to schedule each other into your busy life is the other important thing there. If you're not communicating clearly and you're not finding time for each other, it's going to be really hard in a relationship like that.
So I mean, I'm hearing like your school of thought is phenomenal, right? You said you already had a coach, and I would think like whoever that coach is, they're probably telling you to read certain books. So I'm going to ask you a question: like, are you an avid reader, or are you more so kind of like an audiobook listener?
No, I prefer reading. I hate audiobooks. I need to actually need to have the feel of the page in my hand. It helps me remember, like turning the pages, just like that entire experience helps me absorb more information. And I do read books pretty actively. Like recently, I haven't read that much over the past few months, but you've kind of alluded to a few different things. And I think when I look back at like some of the books that have been like influential, or like some of the thoughts that have gotten me to where I am. There's obviously some really important ones. My leadership style, as you mentioned, comes a lot from Richard Branson, like trying to focus, like his whole thing is, take care of your employees, and they'll take care of the customer. And I think that's the biggest thing as a leader. Like, I feel that my responsibility is to make sure that my employees have what they need to succeed, and then they will do the best job they can, to make sure that the customer is succeeding. And I think that for me is like been one of the biggest keys, is like taking my time and figuring out how I can help my employees, excuse me. Because I know that I have a really great team. I trust them to get everything done, but I got to take everything out of their way, or try to take as much as possible out of their way to make sure that they can do it successfully. So that's one book that's impacted me a lot. There's a lot of other ones. I read a lot of Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca. Those are really good writers that I enjoyed. A lot of psychology as well. The one that I'm like, I don't know. One book I really enjoy is called The War of Art, which is specifically about art, but it applies a lot to business as well. I think that's Stephen Pressfield. And the other one is Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me. That's a psychological one about dealing with other people. Persuasion, the psychology of I forgot what the subtitle is, but Persuasion is the book. That's also really good. So I think those are all like books that impact me a lot, and the type of stuff I enjoy reading to make me a better leader.
So like, just flip the coin on the other side of that, right? I mean, obviously your company as a whole has also produced a couple, I guess, ebooks or books online as well. I mean, I think one of them, the main ones, was the Amazon Seller Central Selling Guide, and the other one, Vendor Central. So I want to like talk about that. I mean, obviously, like, you guys have more of an edge in Kindle than any other person that's even thinking about producing a book. Like, what are you guys kind of thinking about that space? Are you guys planning on creating more books and developing in that space, or like how do you view the KDP space?
I mean, in general, I think it's a marketing tool. Everything is a marketing tool, or like that's the way I look at it. Is like, how can we increase brand awareness? And creating the ebooks was just one example of that. Using the Kindle programs is the example of it. Self-published, there's other ways to get out there, but in general, it's about creating content and creating value. So it happens in a variety of forms. Right now we're doing a podcast. Like, I'm trying to provide value. This is one way that I can get out there. I can create brand awareness for myself, for my company. Books are another way. I do a lot of webinars, blog posts, partnerships. So like, all of this stuff they're really marketing tools. I mean, that's the way that we look at it. And like, that's what we approach all of the businesses from that perspective, is like, how can we create as much brand awareness? How can we get out there? How can we get in front of the people that are looking for what we're trying to solve? And I think that's, when it comes to publishing more books specifically about Amazon, no, I probably won't do that. Like, I will probably in the future look about writing my own books about either, I don't know, leadership or marketing or business, whatever it may be. But that will continue to position myself and my companies from a perspective of where people are going to find us, want to work with us, keep coming to us. And, that's really the benefit that I see from content creation.
So, I mean, I think that's definitely a phenomenal answer. And it kind of makes me think about, like you said, value was the key thing that you said over and over again in that last statement. And part of that was like your YouTube channel. And it was one particular video that I watched that I thought was highly informative and insightful. And the title of that video was How to Liquidate Amazon FBA Inventory. So I want to kind of break that apart a little bit, because I think some of what you do is also elements in that video. And the first thing I want to talk about that was included in that video was inventory management systems. So I want you to kind of talk about how does that play into the whole Amazon hemisphere and what you guys do for your clients.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, if you don't have a good handle on your inventory, you're not going to be successful in the long run. I mean, especially when we're talking about product specific industries. We can sell your product. We can do a great job marketing it. But if we don't have enough inventory, you're not going to be able to keep selling. You're not going to keep working with us. You're going to run out of money, whatever it may be. There's a whole lot of things. And we realized that early on. Before we started the agency, we started as sellers, myself and my two partners. And we realized that our strength was marketing, it was sales, it was positioning, it was not inventory management. And that's kind of what held us back from, growing the selling business a lot more, is that we weren't good at working with manufacturers. We ran into a lot of issues with them. We weren't good at purchasing inventory on time. A lot of these factors, like, on the inventory management side
Mhm.
held us back from growing the business. And that's one of the things that we realized now is that most businesses need to have that logistical piece in place to be able to succeed on the Amazon platform. It's not advertising, it's not the marketing pieces, but just inventory available is the key to being
Yeah.
able to have a customer find you. If you don't have that, then at a bare minimum,
Mhm.
you're not going to be able to be discovered. So I think going back to like value, like you talked about a little bit, is like, how do we as an agency provide value to the companies we work with? It's not just, we're going to consult you on this. It's like,
Mhm.
no, we're going to help you set up the systems that you need within the business to be successful. Because at the end of the day, whether you continue to work with us or, whether you decide to hire your own team in-house, with these systems in place, you'll keep seeing the success on the platform. Without them, you're going to be starting from square zero. So that's kind of how another way that we differentiate ourselves is like we try to create the best SOPs and processes to put in place and systems, to keep everything moving, whether you're working with us, whether you're working on your own. And that is how we can provide more value. Is like once you start seeing these results, the consulting, the strategy, everything else that we're doing in addition to the systems that we've built
Mhm.
just becomes more and more valuable for you as a business.
So I'm going to keep going down into this wormhole because again, like earlier on in the episode, I was like, have your pen and pencil ready. So I mean, this is the part where if they're not taking notes, I mean, obviously you're missing out a huge opportunity. Another thing that you talked about on your YouTube channel was the buy box, which people that are familiar with Amazon and familiar with Amazon selling, they understand what the buy box is, but you can kind of define that. But in relation to repricing tools, I wanted to kind of talk about how those two hemispheres work and actually make like the buy box more available to an actual vendor that's selling something by using a repricing tool.
Yeah. So the buy box depends on who has the lowest price product essentially, or who has the best offer available for consumers.
Mm.
Repricing tools are for pretty much taking advantage of fluctuations throughout the day. So, for example, I could be selling like it's not generic, it's a branded product, but it's very popular. Let's say I'm selling Nike shoes. There's probably 100 other people selling Nike shoes. So how do I sell my product, or how do I win that buy box?
Mm.
A lot of people will use repricing tools for that. And essentially it's, seeing where the demand is during the day, dropping the price slightly to end up winning the buy box there. It's essentially like it's arbitraging price differences and trying to get ahead of everyone else. Like it obviously cuts into your margin a little bit every time you're doing that. But at the end of the day, this is what a lot of people do. I mean, retail arbitrage is a full-time business for some people, making $100,000, $200,000 a year, and it's literally just buying other brands' products and then selling them again. So it's interesting you bring that up because it's when we talk about systems, we talk about things we try to help these brands achieve. Like we call it, for lack of a better term, we're going to call it leakage. The
Yeah.
leakage of their product to other sellers that are reselling it and stealing the buy box from them is high for most of these brands. They don't have the right distribution agreements in place. They don't have the MAP agreements in place. They don't have ways to hold things accountable. There's a lot of programs on Amazon and other ways to track this stuff with like serial numbers and things like that. But most of these companies aren't set up for success. And I think that comes back to like not having the right system. So, when you get into these situations where you didn't build the right system, now you need something like a repricing tool to be able to even sell the inventory you have. Otherwise, you're going to have 100 other sellers that you're competing with.
So like, let's just keep digging. I'm loving this hole that we're going in because it exposes like the tips and tricks of Amazon, but obviously it facilitates someone to kind of think about things a little bit differently, right? So like on top of that, right? So we're talking about the buy box, the repricing tool. There's also the Amazon promotions and tier pricing. So I want to talk about like how does that play into the other two items that you just listed?
Yeah. So the merchandising aspects of the platform is really how you're going to push more product or turn more inventory. It really comes down to a strategic decision on what your goals are. For example, we work with brands that are, consumables. So supplements, cosmetics, food. They are the types of brands I want to go out and acquire as many customers as possible. Now, how do you acquire as many customers as possible? Usually by creating some type of offer, incentivizing them in some way. Tier promotions is one aspect of that. Buy this product in my catalog, save 10% on this product in my catalog, buy 2 of these, save 10%. Whatever tool we can use to convert more consumers is how we'll leverage the merchandising aspects of Amazon. Because at the end of the day, when you have a consumable brand, it's about your customer lifetime value. And this is why I said they'll try to acquire as many customers as possible because they know what their lifetime value is. They know they can pay this much to acquire a customer, and we help them put the systems in place to calculate all of this. And then we go out and scale it. And it's like, all right, now how do we increase conversions? Well, we run promotions, or we target these keywords, or we change the images on this. And that's really where like the fun comes in. It's like, we know the goal, we know what we're trying to achieve. Now, what are the tools that we can use, like promotions, like other aspects of the platform, to help us get to that goal? And yeah, I mean, that's really the way that we would leverage those on Amazon.
So then last but not least, I mean, obviously everything we're talking about kind of takes off a little bit of the margins, which, coupons could be viewed as a margin suck, or they can be like more sales per transaction. So I want you to kind of talk about how does coupons play into these last three strategies?
I think, I mean, coupons is another good example. It increases conversion. So when you're in that mode where you're trying to acquire as many customers as possible, running coupons is a great idea. But I think you brought up something really important there about the margins. Amazon's never going to be the highest margin platform you're selling on. Amazon has a ton of fees. It has a ton of competition. It's where everyone's going to search. Your advertising costs are going to be way higher than other places. And as a brand or as a business owner, when you start understanding how that works better, you can start seeing how Amazon fits within your e-commerce ecosystem. So the way that we explain it a lot is from a marketing standpoint, you have the sales funnel. You have your awareness at the top, consideration in the middle, and conversions at the bottom, and loyalty beyond that. When you're looking at how Amazon fits within that e-commerce funnel, it's at the top. It's brand awareness. It doesn't, you're not going to make money. You're trying to expose the brand to as many people as possible. 69% of online searches start on Amazon for products. So like, why wouldn't you want to be there? Why wouldn't you want to be seen? And when you start considering it that way and start looking at it with like traditional marketing lens, the ROI on awareness is usually pretty low. But the ROI we can get on Amazon is significantly higher because so many people have trust in the platform and buy products to the platform. So thinking about it in two different perspectives, you're at the top of the funnel, you're able to get a better ROI than you would through any other type of ad that you would be running. And then it just makes sense. Like, keep investing money into the platform so you keep acquiring more customers, keep bringing more awareness for your products. These customers come to your website or whatever other platform where you might have a higher margin. And that's where you really grow the business over time. So it's a short-term investment to help you achieve a long-term goal.
So I think this is, you and I want to like throw on a damn mastermind right now, right? So like, let's say it's an opportunity for someone to kind of look at white labeling a product versus using the actual brand name of the actual product. Now, the brand name has more brand awareness versus your personal white label version of it's the same exact product, but you have to put more of an effort into converting that brand into an actual household name. So now you have these two different styles of conversions. And if somebody has an opportunity, which one would you recommend that they go into, considering that the margins will probably be less with the actual brand name product versus your product having your name on it with the white label?
For sure. I mean, you nailed it there. The margin is going to be higher on your own branded products, your private label or white label brand, whatever you want to call it. The trade-off is that, and I'm seeing this more and more, there's a lot more people moving into the wholesale aspects of buying brand inventory and then selling it. And if they're making money, great. Like, I don't know how much inventory they're holding. I don't know how much cash they're investing, but at the end of the day, you're buying a lot of inventory and you're not going to win. You might not be winning the buy box all the time. You have no idea how long it's going to sit, how long it's going to take to turn that inventory. With your own brand, it's harder to build brand recognition over time. But again, this is kind of where the Amazon platform has an advantage for you in that unless someone is coming to the platform and searching for, Nike Air Max, for example, if they're looking for sneaker, you have a chance to compete. If they're not committed to purchasing a brand, you have the chance to get your product out there. And if it has the right qualities or the right features, the right style, whatever it may be that differentiates it, that customer is going to consider your product over whatever other brand name they may have heard before. And that's the cool thing, is that from a disruptor standpoint, the non-branded searches on Amazon is where you have a great opportunity to come in and start building more of a name for yourself, start creating that audience, and then leveraging it in other ways. So when you get to a certain point of scale on the Amazon platform, you can start using some of the other Amazon advertising tools like the programmatic side to start creating like lookalike audiences, custom audiences of people that have purchased your product, and then start pushing those people to your store or wherever else you want. So that's like the cool, powerful aspects of it, is like, if you're going to build a brand, yeah, it's a commitment. It's going to take time, but like the upside on it is way, way higher than if you're just going to be wholesaling other brands'
Yeah.
products. I mean, you might make a living, but like you're not building something for the future.
Yeah, I mean, and to add on to that, I think having the white label aspect of those products by default becomes a marketing strategy because then you can put QR codes, web addresses, coupons
Exactly.
on the actual packaging to lead them back outside of the Amazon market, and then you get them on your own website to where you can kind of even get higher margins.
100%. Yeah. And that's like completely the strategy that we recommend to a lot of our brands, especially like the consumables. Again, I said lifetime value is the key there.
Mhm.
So how do we increase that lifetime value? We get them into other places where we can remarket to them more frequently through email, through paid ads, retargeting ads, social media, whatever platforms we're choosing.
Mhm.
The end goal is like, how do I get them from Amazon to another platform?
Okay. So let's play devil's advocate. Worst case scenario, you end up with like a warehouse full of either white label products or the original products. Where does someone even start with the liquidation? I mean, we kind of went through some of the actual liquidation processes, but again, like what is liquidation and how does somebody even move that product when they don't want to sell it anymore?
So there's different ways to do it. There's a lot of groups online now that will actually purchase inventory. There's some agencies or some companies out there that will go out and purchase it. Honestly, any quick search for liquidation or Amazon liquidation, you'll probably find my blog first. But after that, you'll probably find the companies that can help you. Some of the platforms that we've seen in the past, and even interesting from a selling standpoint, are like direct liquidation is one of them. Something wholesale. I forgot the name of the other one. Those are where you actually see liquidated inventory coming from, Walmart, from Target, from massive retailers, and you can get your inventory on there too. But from the selling side, you can also buy liquidated inventory, which might be open box. It might have some other issue where you can then resell it. So mainly going through a group, like there's Facebook, WhatsApp groups of people buying liquidated inventory. You're going to lose money. I mean, you're liquidating the inventory, but you're going to get cash back. So at the end of the day, like we're talking about risk here. Yes, there's a risk, but if you manage it the right way, you're not going to go broke. You're going to get cash back. Like I had plenty of products when I was a seller, colored pencils being one of them, where it was like, let me just sell through these to get my money back, or like get 80% of my money back or 70% of my money back, because this isn't going to be a long-term success strategy for me. And like, yeah, there was a risk I took there. There was an opportunity I saw. It didn't work out the way I expected. But at the end of the day, I didn't lose everything. It's not catastrophic. I'm going to get that cash back and then I can reinvest that in something else. So it's risk aversion is one of the big things there when it comes to like going down that white label route. Otherwise, you got to be able to cut your losses, get your money back and move on.
All right. So, I mean, obviously, you can help individual with all of these different things, but I guess primarily someone's listening to this episode right now and they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't even know all these things even existed. I would love to get into it." Like, before they actually jump on the bandwagon of becoming an FBA affiliate, right? I want you to kind of talk about words of wisdom to kind of help them understand the processes to make them successful in the Amazon market.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest piece of advice I can give is if you're going to go out and build your own products, build your own brand, make sure the product is high quality. That is the fundamental thing. If your product's not good quality, people are going to find that out real quick. The reviews are going to be terrible. The customer complaints are going to be high. The returns are going to be high. All of that's going to pretty much sink you from the beginning. So if you're going to go that route, just make sure you have something good, because when you have a good product, it speaks for itself. Your customers become your biggest advocates, start promoting it to other people. It just helps spread the word more and more. And I think that is the fundamental thing. Like once you have that in place or you have a good product, it's going to solve a lot of problems for you down the road versus like starting with a crap product and then having to solve these issues of unhappy customers and whatever other problems come up with it. So that's probably the biggest piece of advice I can give. Start with the fundamentals, literally design a good product and it'll sell itself.
So, I mean, that kind of leads me to someone's listening right now and they're hearing you. And obviously, I was asking you particular questions to kind of showcase how proficient you are and why you've earned the title of being the Amazon Ecom boss, right? So how do they get in contact with you? Like what platform do you want to send them to or what website?
The two best places to reach me are LinkedIn. My profile is Michael Begg on LinkedIn, AMZ Advisors CEO. Or personally, my email, Mike at amzadvisors.com. You can also reach me there or through the AMZ Advisors website. Those are the three best places to get in touch with me. I'm always happy to talk with brands, entrepreneurs that are trying to move into the space, trying to be successful online. I think it's one of the awesome things that got me to where I was taking a risk, using a lot of the mentors that I had around me to help learn as much as possible. And we're always glad to help other companies when we can.
Hmm. So, I mean, obviously, earlier on, we talked about multiple different companies, right? You talked about your advisor, but you also talked about the magnifier. So, again, I want you to kind of talk about 20 years from now. I think you're pretty young. You have more than 20 years left in you as far as in business. Where do you see you as far as business collectively, what you're building right now, 20 years from now?
Well, I don't know how, I don't know exactly where I'll be in 20 years. I'll say that. I'll say that the thing that I'm most excited about building now is the Go Advanced side. I think that has the biggest upside in the long term. And like I said, it's about iterating and finding things that are going to lead to a more successful business model down the road.
Mhm.
I think we have the potential to be the biggest e-commerce company in Latin America.
Mhm.
And because of that, we want to work with the companies that are looking to be the biggest brands in Latin America. And between the two of us, we're going to achieve a ton of success over the next 20 years. I think by then we'll obviously be in Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, every other marketplace in Latin America. And yeah, I mean, I think that's probably one of the most exciting things that I see myself achieving over the next 20 years.
So, I mean, in that space, I mean, obviously, you speak a lot of Spanish, and I know that you speak Spanish professionally, and I guess you're working on your Portuguese, right? So,
Yeah.
I want you kind of talk about obviously that's an advantage for you to be able to speak those languages, or is that something that did you grow up speaking those languages?
No, I didn't grow up with them. Actually, interestingly enough, my mom, she was Portuguese. Never taught me Portuguese when I was young. She forced me to speak English. So,
Mm,
which is interesting. All my other cousins my age speak it, which is just different. But um, I think I've learned it over time. I've learned it from working here, living here in Mexico. My Spanish is very much Mexican Spanish. It's not, Castilian. Well, it is Castilian, but it's not, Spanish from Spain. Um, you can always learn it over time. It's definitely an advantage to know it. I can cut through a lot of the nonsense when I actually hear it, and I think that's one of the advantages to knowing another language, and working in the international sense, is that you can catch and understand a lot more yourself instead of having things get lost in translation by going through someone else.
mm, mm. So, I mean, with that, I mean, obviously, we've listed out probably at least 24 achievements in this call, right? I want you to kind of talk about which one is the most significant one to you today.
I think the most significant one is obviously, getting married.
Mm,
Having that partner in your life to be with forever is pretty incredible. That's obviously a personal achievement, but that's the most significant for me. From the business side, I mean, getting the agency to where it is now has been an incredible journey, and we have a lot further to go. Working with some really talented individuals has also been a really great experience. It's opened my eyes to doing new things and really made me improve as a person as well. So I think those are the two biggest personal and business experiences.
okay. So let's just put this question out here. And this is the bonus question, right? If you could spend 24 hours with anyone, and this person could be someone that you've never met that's dead from the past, or it could be someone that you know now that you haven't had an opportunity to sit down with, but you get to spend 24 hours with this person uninterrupted, right? And again, we're going to take your wife off the table because we know you guys are best friends. But outside of your wife, who would it be and why?
Oh man. I think it would have to be Richard Branson. I mean, like I mentioned him earlier, but when it comes to my leadership style and the way that I approach things, I think I've learned more from the way that he ran his companies or runs his companies than anything. Plus, like, still seems like an awesome guy at like 80, whatever he is,
Yeah.
jamming out, living his life. So I think that's probably one of the people I would want to spend 24 hours with, pick his brain, just hang out, chat, and like get his perspective on life. Cause I think if there's anyone that like lives a really good life and is really successful in business, it's probably him.
Yeah, I could definitely say that. I could totally see you two in a hot air balloon traveling across half the world playing chess all at the same time. So I definitely appreciate that answer. So going into closing, right? I like to give whoever I'm interviewing an opportunity to become the host of my show. Since you're a fellow podcaster, you should be used to this, right? So now Uncaged is now your show. You're the host. I'm your guest. Do you have any questions for me?
I think I mean, I think this is kind of always the question that I come up with and ask myself personally as a podcast host is like, what is the value I'm trying to transmit, or what am I trying to change in the world by doing this? And I think that's always a tough question to answer for myself. I don't know how you find that question, but what is it that you're trying to get out of a podcast, or what are you trying to change in the world through doing this?
Well, I think of podcasting a little bit differently than when I first got into it, right? I mean, I got into it kind of a way of bringing life back into myself because I had like a life death experience, and it gave me the opportunity to kind of rebuild my businesses and everything. But now, when I look at it, is more so like legacy, not just about the content, but about the stories. And that's why I do so much due diligence because again, you can go to any podcast, right? I mean, people are raising their hands to probably interview you left and right, and they only want to talk about what you do and how you do for an hour
Yeah,
versus on Boss Uncaged, I'm really trying to uncage who you are and why you are the way you are, and obviously talk about your business. So then the viewer could then see, well, you know what? I'm a lot like this person. The only thing I'm missing that he said that I'm not doing is I don't have a coach,
yeah.
or I didn't get this level of education, or I'm not taking action, or I'm not being a good leader. And these little elements that you said in this episode, hopefully would translate to someone, if not today, if not tomorrow, maybe 20, 30, 40 years down the road.
For sure. And I think you actually nailed that. It's about inspiring other people. I mean, I think a lot of entrepreneurs seem like they're unreachable, they're untouchable, and really we're not. It's just that we've either looked at things differently or we've had different opportunities that we've taken advantage of. And I think a lot of what we try to do is help other people achieve more. So I really appreciated that style of podcast as well.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it, man. So, you have any other questions, or are you good?
Chanel, I'm good, man. This
Cool.
you just crushed it on this past hour. You made me sound like an all-star. I appreciate it.
Well, I mean, you are. When you look at like what you've done and where you are, and collectively, like the way you define and understand Amazon. I mean, and again, you could translate Amazon to a very simple terminology versus being all jargon, which is highly effective for someone that's trying to learn Amazon for the first time. So, our listeners definitely appreciate you, and I appreciate you for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope it was valuable. And, if I ever have the opportunity again, I'd be glad to come back.
Definitely. SA Grant.